My name's Piergiovanni Capellino, and today I will be interviewing Saitō Kōhei, philosopher, professor at the University of Tokyo, as well as the author of Slow Down, The Growth Manifesto. Why is Fondazione Capellino interested in Kōhei's thought? Well, our foundation is leading an economical experiment called reintegration economy, which is somehow close to Kōhei's thought. This is why we want to talk to him and make you familiar with his views. Saitō Kōhei, 38, is a Japanese philosopher, political economist, and environmentalist. Saitō makes a radical criticism to capitalism, not simply as a limited economic system, but as an environmentally unsustainable one. Kōhei, are you ready for the interview?
Yes.
Thinking of the three main geopolitical blocks, the Western world, China and BRICS countries, what's your assessment on their impact on biodiversity?
Oh, well, I think the Western world has most responsibility historically. I mean, now, of course, China is growing, Brazil is also destroying Amazon rainforests, but historical impact is obviously Western societies, colonialism, imperialism, lot of exploitation of labor and also destruction of nature for hundreds of years. So, yeah, the Western society needs to really show the different kind of model for other societies too. I think, we cannot say that, oh, now China is destroying the planet, but it's because Chinese people now want to live like Americans. And I think America is presenting the model of development based on economic growth. And that's not working. I mean, they are the ones who are most polluting the entire planet. And I think it's now time to discuss really what kind of development, and instead of economic growth, we should seek after. And then that might be a new way of actually a learning process for the Western European people to learn from other societies, other non-Western societies, and other traditions and other values, and then finding new values that have been marginalized in our societies too. I think so. This is, I personally find it very dangerous to say, oh, now African people are growing, we are too many humans on this planet to save the planet. I think there are ways to find solution when we challenge this model of economic growth, excessive consumption and production in Western society.
What's your take on SDGs, Green New Deal, and the use nature restoration law?
Well, I start my book with this phrase that SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, are actually the opium of masses. So they are just a kind of greenwashing that often people think that they did something good for the environment, recycling, buying organic products, organic cotton, like t-shirts. And then they don't really question the current economic system, which is capitalism, that requires constant economic growth, accompanied by increasing resource and energy consumption. So, yeah, SDGs didn't really work. The 2030 is now approaching and we didn't solve many problems. And Green New Deal also didn't work. The European New Deal, Green Deal, didn't really bring little change, but not a significant system transformation. And that's the same with biodiversity. We don't even have any concrete transformation on the world scale, I think the biodiversity is even more serious than climate change because we don't have solution. Right? I mean, climate change, we know how we can solve. We don't do it. We don't do enough, but we know we have to decarbonize. But what do we do with biodiversity? It's really hard. I don't even know the answer. Of course, rewilding, and but that's not enough. And I think we really have to find much radical ways of challenging our existential threat on this planet. And I think these solutions like the SDGs, Green New Deal, and the nature restoration law, these are small one step forward, but it's too small. But people often get satisfied with these small first steps. So we have to keep pushing more and more so that we have much rapid, more fast transformation.
During your trip from Milan to Genova, I imagine you read about the environmental economic model put forward by Fondazione Capellino through Almo Nature, pet food company, which is completely owned by the foundation and called reintegration economy. This essentially means reinvest all profit in biodiversity restoration, rather than creating new financial wealth. What do you think of this approach as an alternative to the growth that you propose?
Yeah, as I discussed in my book, I think this, there are different models like cooperatives or this kind of like foundation, and these are very important because it gives, say, workers or consumers more power to influence, and it's not simply directed towards profit maximization. And so this is also like very important step of transforming, the existing capitalist system. And then maybe the difference is maybe that, but if we don't also try to transform the bigger market structure, once you step outside of the company and then enter the market, then there's always the competition. And then companies, cooperatives, foundations all have to, fight with all those other greedy companies. And they're bad companies, of course. But the good companies also have to compete with bad companies. And then what happens is usually, this growth imperative and the logic of profit making kind of dominates even good companies. So I think it's very important because we have to do something. So I have like big respect for those new attempts to build better, more sustainable, equal economy. But it's also important to not to forget that fundamentally we really have to challenge this system of capitalism that requires constant growth. Because if we keep growing and growing, there is no way that we can achieve decarbonization by 2050, biodiversity. These are the ones that also requires staying within certain boundaries, and then maybe the Western societies, as we discussed, have to think about reducing production and consumption, and this has created like a lot of tension with this existing economic system.
What's inspired you to become a Marx scholar?
Yeah, I don't come from a political family, so I was not politically active until I was 16 or 17, and the moment was Iraq War, 9/11, Iraq War, and then there was like this US, Japan, and invasion of Iraq, and so on. So I was kind of interested in and participating in some peace demonstration and so on. That was when I was high school. So that's how I started to read people like Noam Chomsky or Edward Said, and I was interested more in philosophy, history, political science. And then I entered the university. That's how in some classes we read Karl Marx, Communist Manifesto, German ideology. And then that was a time when the Italian Marxist Antonio Negri, he published the book Empire with Michael Hart, and it became very popular, and I started reading, and it kind of makes sense to understand the world, because I was concerned about this invasion of Iraq, destruction, and oil money, the colonialism and these kind of things. And then I think Marxists gave me a very good perspective to think these issues from a critical perspective. And that's how I gradually got into Marxist tradition.
A question regarding the future. If you would talk to people who will be aged between 20 and 40 in 2050, what would you tell them?
Well, I think we have to say we are very sorry that we didn't act against climate change. We knew that something terrible would happen if we didn't do anything. But despite knowing this, we didn't do anything. We instead started war in Ukraine, and then we also started the genocide in Gaza. And then the world didn't really show any solidarity. And then, of course, the climate issue was marginalized because we are only talking about inflation. And we are often supporting right-wing populists who don't really care about justice and sustainability. And that's it's gonna lead to a very bad situation by 2050. And my children will be something around that kind of age by 2050. And I feel really bad. I mean, we still do have some chance, and we have to do something to avoid the worst scenario, but we didn't do enough, and we are not doing enough. So maybe we have to apologize to them.
Thank you, Kōhei. Our interview ends now. Thank you, everyone, for following us.
Thank you.